The words hit me like a slap across the face. Maybe if you had a little more ambition, Ryan, you'd understand what the client actually wants. I stood frozen in the glass-walled conference room at Stratwell and Pierce Consulting. My boss, Ethan Stratwell, sneered at me from across the table. The client from Apex Industries sat between us, clearly uncomfortable. My team members stared at their notebooks, avoiding my eyes. 5 years. 5 years of my life dedicated to this company. 5 years of missed holidays, sacrificed weekends, and endless late nights. And this was how Ethan repaid me. Humiliation in front of a client. Ryan, you're comfortable, not ambitious, Ethan continued, his voice dripping with contempt. That's always been your problem. My mouth opened to defend myself, but before I could speak, Ethan's smirk widened. You'll never lead anything bigger than a PowerPoint deck, he said. Then, without breaking eye contact, he added the words that changed everything. You're done here. Pack your things. The room fell silent. Someone coughed. The client looked away. I felt my face burning, but I refused to let him see me break. I walked out with my head high, even though my hands were shaking. As I reached the parking lot and sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, one thought echoed in my mind. We'll see about that. 2 years earlier, everything was different. I had just joined Stratwell and Pierce as a senior consultant. Ethan was charming during my interview, talking about mentorship and growth opportunities. He promised I'd have a real voice in shaping the company's future. Those first months felt promising. I was assigned to strategic projects, working directly with major clients. My approach was simple: listen carefully, analyze deeply, deliver results. I wasn't flashy like Ethan, who loved being the center of attention at every meeting. But I got things done. Ethan seemed to appreciate that. He'd clap me on the shoulder after successful presentations, saying things like, "Good work, buddy," or "I knew I could count on you." Looking back, I realized those were the good days. Before the cracks started showing. The first time I noticed something off was during a quarterly meeting. Ethan presented a client retention strategy to the board. I recognized every slide because I'd created them. He didn't mention my name once. When I asked him about it later, he laughed. Don't worry about credit, Ryan. We're a team. What matters is the win. I believed him. I actually believed him. That was my first mistake. The turning point came 6 months before my firing. I had stayed late working on a presentation for an industry conference. The strategy I developed, a new framework for digital transformation consulting, was innovative. I knew it could put Stratwell and Pierce on the map. The next morning, I found an email in my inbox. It wasn't meant for me. Someone had accidentally included me in a reply chain. The subject line read, "Conference Update." I opened it. Ethan's presentation at the Tech Leaders Summit was a huge success. The digital transformation framework he unveiled is getting incredible buzz. My framework, my work, my late nights, presented by Ethan as his own creation. I printed the email and walked to his office. My hands were steady, but my heart pounded. When I showed him the evidence, I expected an apology, maybe embarrassment. Instead, he leaned back in his leather chair and smiled. "Ryan, this is how the game works," he said calmly. "You either play it or you get played. I thought you understood that. But it was my work. And you did it on company time with company resources," he interrupted. "That makes it company property, which means it's mine to present however I see fit." I left his office that day with a sinking feeling in my stomach. Ethan's mentorship wasn't mentorship at all. It was exploitation dressed up in friendly words. A month later, Redline Manufacturing came in. They were a major industrial company looking for consulting support on a complete operational overhaul. The contract was worth millions, our biggest potential client yet. Ethan called me into his office. "I'm putting you on this one, Ryan. But listen carefully. I need you to be professional. Don't get too chummy with the client. Keep appropriate boundaries." The warning felt strange, but I nodded. My first meeting with Gordon Mays, Redline CEO, changed everything. Gordon was in his late 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Unlike most executives who loved corporate jargon, Gordon spoke plainly and valued honesty above everything. "I don't care about fancy presentations," he told me during our initial consultation. "I care about real solutions. Can you deliver that?" "Yes, sir," I said. "That's exactly what I do." Over the following weeks, Gordon and I developed a strong working relationship. He appreciated my straightforward approach. I gave him honest assessments, even when the truth was uncomfortable. He respected that. But Ethan noticed. During one of our team meetings, he pulled me aside. "You're spending a lot of time with Maze. Remember what I said about boundaries?" His tone wasn't friendly anymore. It was a warning. The theft happened 3 months into the Red Line project. I had prepared a comprehensive operational analysis for Gordon, weeks of research, data modeling, and strategic recommendations. The presentation was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. Wednesday night, Ethan called me into his office. "Something came up with another client," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I need you to handle it tomorrow. I'll take your Red Line meeting." "But I prepared everything." "I've reviewed your materials." "I can handle it," he cut me off. "This is non-negotiable." The next day, I sat at my desk while Ethan presented my analysis to Gordon Mays. Through the glass walls, I watched Gordon nodding, taking notes, clearly impressed. Afterward, Gordon shook Ethan's hand warmly. My coworker Tess walked past my desk and whispered, "That was your pitch." I forced a smile. Team effort. But inside, something shifted. The humiliation burned deeper than anger. It was disappointment. In Ethan, in myself, for accepting this treatment. In a system that rewarded theft over talent. That evening, Tess emailed me. "We need to talk." We met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the office. Tess was one of the few people at Stratwell and Pierce I trusted. She was smart, principled, and had worked there longer than me. If she wanted to talk privately, it was serious. "Ethan's been bad-mouthing you to upper management," she said quietly, stirring her coffee without drinking it. "He told them you're burnt out, that you're afraid of taking on leadership responsibilities." "What? That's not true." "I know," she said, "but he's planting seeds. Making sure if something goes wrong with Redline, you're the scapegoat." My stomach dropped. Everything suddenly made sense. The warnings about boundaries, taking credit for my work, excluding me from key meetings. "There's more," Tess continued. "The promotion you applied for last month?" Ethan gave it to Derek. Derek, the guy who spent more time schmoozing than working, who took credit for team wins and blamed others for losses, who had half my experience and a quarter of my results. "Why?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Because Derek will never threaten him," Tess said. "You're too good, Ryan. Ethan sees that and it scares him." That night I started backing up everything. Every email, every project file, every document I created. I didn't know what I'd need it for, but instinct told me to protect myself. 2 weeks later, I found an internal memo Ethan had sent to HR. Subject: Staff Optimization Plan. My name was on the list. Notes beside it read, "Underperforming. Consider termination in Q3. Now, standing in that conference room with Ethan's words echoing around me, everything came full circle. "You're done here. Pack your things." The client from Apex Industries looked mortified. My team stared at their hands. Ethan's expression was triumphant. He'd been planning this moment. "You're making a mistake," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Ethan laughed, actually laughed. "Ryan, buddy, maybe this will wake you up. Sometimes you need a push to find your ambition." I wanted to shout. I wanted to flip the table. Instead, I picked up my notebook, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "Thank you for the lesson." His smile faltered slightly, confused by my calm response. I walked out of that conference room for the last time. As I passed through the office, people whispered. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked relieved it wasn't them. I cleaned out my desk in silence, putting 5 years of my professional life into a cardboard box. Photos of successful projects. Awards I'd won. Commendations from clients who valued my work. None of it mattered to Ethan. To him, I was just another expendable employee. I carried that box to my car, set it in the trunk, and drove home in a daze. That evening, Tess showed up at my apartment. "He's not done with you, Ryan," she warned. "Ethan's already telling people you were fired for performance issues. He's poisoning your reputation." I sat on my couch, staring at nothing. "What am I supposed to do?" I asked. Tess sat beside me. "You fight back. But you do it smart." The first 2 weeks after my firing were the hardest. I applied to dozens of consulting firms. Most didn't respond. The few that did brought me in for interviews, but something always fell off. Questions about why I left Stratwell and Pierce. Hesitation when I explained. Finally, a recruiter told me the truth. "I'm sorry, but we received a concerning reference from your previous employer. We're going to pass." Ethan. He'd poisoned the well. My savings were running low. Bills piled up on my kitchen counter. Every rejection email felt like confirmation that maybe Ethan was right. Maybe I really wasn't ambitious enough. I was sitting in my apartment staring at another rejection email when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Ryan Keller?" The voice was familiar. "Yes. It's Gordon Mays from Redline Manufacturing." I sat up straight. "Mr. Mays, hello. I heard what happened at Stratwell and Pierce," he said. "I wanted to reach out personally. That presentation Ethan gave me a few months back, I know it was your work." My heart pounded. "How did you?" "Because I've worked with enough people to know real competence when I see it," Gordon said. "Ethan's follow-up work was sloppy. You were the brains behind that operation." I didn't know what to say. "Have you ever thought about going out on your own?" Gordon asked. The question hung in the air. I might now," I said slowly. "Good," Gordon replied. "Because the consulting world needs more people like you and fewer people like Ethan Stratwell." After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and created a new document. Title: Business Plan Keller & Company. Consulting. I turned my tiny apartment into an office. My desk became command central. My couch turned into a meeting area. My kitchen table transformed into a workspace for reviewing proposals and strategies. Tess quit Stratwell and Pierce 2 weeks after my firing. She said she couldn't work for someone like Ethan anymore. When I told her about my business idea, she didn't hesitate. "I'm in," she said. "Let's build something better." We named it Keller & Company. Consulting. 1 desk, 2 laptops, and a shared dream of creating a firm built on integrity instead of ego. Our first logo was designed on free software. Our business cards were printed at a discount shop. Our website was built using a template and sheer determination. Every night, I wrote the same goal on our whiteboard: make it matter. We spent weeks preparing our first proposal for a potential client, a mid-sized manufacturing company looking for operational consulting. I poured everything I'd learned into that proposal, crafting solutions specific to their needs. The response came 2 weeks later. "Thank you for your proposal. Unfortunately, we've decided to go with a larger firm. You're simply too small for a project of this scope." Tess saw my face fall. "It's just the first one," she said. "We keep going." But rejection stung worse when everything was riding on success. We pivoted our strategy. Instead of chasing big contracts, we focused on small businesses that larger consulting firms ignored. Companies with 20 to 50 employees who needed help but couldn't afford the big firm's rates. Our first client was a family-owned logistics company struggling with inventory management. They paid us $5,000 for 3 months of consulting, barely enough to cover our expenses, but it was a start. We delivered exceptional results. Their inventory accuracy improved by 40%. Their operational costs dropped by 15%. Most importantly, they were thrilled. That led to referrals. 1 client became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became 10. We worked 16-hour days, but unlike at Stratwell and Pierce, every hour felt meaningful. We weren't making someone else rich. We were building something ours. 6 months in, Tess showed me an article in the industry newsletter. Stratwell and Pierce faces internal challenges, high turnover and client complaints. "Karma," Tess said with satisfaction. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt focused. Ethan's downfall wasn't my goal, my success was. Then, 3 months later, something changed. Tess burst into our office one morning, laptop in hand. "You need to see this." She showed me a Business Journal article. Redline Manufacturing Reevaluating Long-Term Consulting Partnership. My heart skipped. Redline was Stratwell and Pierce's biggest client. "They're opening it up to bids," Tess said. "The contract is worth $12 million over 3 years." I stared at the number. $12 million. That was more than our entire annual revenue multiplied by 20. "We can't compete with that," I said. But even as I said it, part of me wondered, what if we could? A week later, I got a call from a former Stratwell and Pierce analyst. "Ryan, I probably shouldn't be telling you this," she whispered, "but Ethan's panicking. Redline's unhappy with their work. There have been complaints about quality, missed deadlines, and lack of communication." "Why are you telling me?" I asked. "Because you deserved better than what happened to you. And because Ethan's telling everyone that if they lose Redline, it's because you poisoned the relationship before you left." Of course he was. I thanked her and hung up. Then I stared at the Redline announcement on my screen. Tess saw my expression. "Don't even think about it." "Think about what?" "Bidding for Redline. We're not ready." She was right. We were still small. Still building credibility. Going after Stratwell and Pierce's biggest client was ambitious, bordering on reckless. But then I remembered Ethan's words, "You'll never lead anything bigger than a PowerPoint deck." I opened a new document and started drafting our proposal. Preparing the bid consumed every waking moment. I researched Redline's operations thoroughly, their supply chain challenges, market pressures, growth opportunities. I analyzed 3 years of industry data. I built financial models, showing exactly how our approach would deliver measurable results. Tess warned me repeatedly, "This feels personal, Ryan. Make sure you're doing this for the right reasons." She wasn't wrong. Part of me wanted to prove Ethan wrong. But another part genuinely believed we could help Redline better than Stratwell and Pierce ever could. "If we win, it'll be because we earned it," I told her. Fair and square. 2 weeks before the proposal deadline, my phone rang. Gordon Mays. "Ryan, I saw Keller and Company on the bid list," he said. "I wanted you to know. You should submit your proposal. I want to see what you've got." My hands shook as I thanked him. This was real. This was happening. We spent the final week perfecting every detail. While Stratwell and Pierce likely threw money at expensive graphics and flashy presentations, we focused on substance. Real solutions. Honest assessments. Clear ROI projections. On submission day, I uploaded our proposal at 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the deadline. Tess and I sat in our tiny office, exhausted but hopeful. "Whatever happens," she said, "we gave it everything." I nodded. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about winning a contract. It was about proving I was exactly as ambitious as I needed to be. The waiting was torture. Redline's decision timeline was 4 weeks. 4 weeks of checking my email every 10 minutes. 4 weeks of second-guessing every sentence in our proposal. Meanwhile, Ethan was confident. I knew, because word traveled quickly in our industry. Tess showed me a press release from Stratwell and Pierce, confident in continued partnership with Redline Manufacturing, building on years of successful collaboration. "He's so sure he's won," Tess said. But something bothered me. 2 weeks into the waiting period, Tess received an anonymous email. No subject line. Just an attachment, our complete proposal to Redline. Someone had leaked it. "Ethan," I said immediately. "He has someone on the inside." Tess looked worried. "If he's seen our strategy." "Then we change it," I said. I spent the next 48 hours rewriting key sections of our approach. I kept the structure similar enough that if Ethan copied it, his presentation would seem borrowed. But I adjusted our methodology just enough that our actual strategy remained protected. It was a gamble. But if Ethan had taught me anything, it was that sometimes you have to play the game smart. 1 week before Redline's final decision, another press release appeared from Stratwell and Pierce. Stratwell and Pierce confident in securing Redline contract renewal. innovative approach positions firm as industry leader. I read it and smiled. He thinks he's already won, I said to Tess. Maybe he has, she replied carefully. Or maybe he's about to learn a very expensive lesson, I said. The presentation day arrived. Redline scheduled back-to-back presentations. Stratwell and Pierce in the morning, Keller and Company in the afternoon. 3 other firms were also competing, but everyone knew it was really between us and Ethan. I wore my best suit, arrived early, and waited in the lobby. When Ethan walked in with his team, 5 people carrying expensive presentation materials, he didn't even notice me sitting there. His presentation lasted 90 minutes. Through the glass doors, I could see animated gestures, confident smiles, and slick slides projected on screens. When he emerged, he looked satisfied. He walked right past me, still not noticing, chatting with his team about celebration drinks. Then it was our turn. Gordon Mays greeted us personally, along with Redline's CFO and operations director. The room was simple. A conference table, a projector, and 6 decision-makers who would determine our future. Mr. Keller, Gordon said, shaking my hand. We're looking forward to your presentation. I set up our materials and took a breath. Then I began. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm not going to waste your time with flashy graphics or corporate buzzwords. Instead, I want to show you exactly how Keller and Company will solve your 3 biggest operational challenges. And I want to be completely honest about where we see risks. For the next hour, I walked them through our analysis. I presented hard data, realistic timelines, and transparent cost projections. When they asked difficult questions, I gave honest answers, even when those answers weren't what they wanted to hear. Tests supported with detailed financial models, showing precise ROI calculations. At one point, the CFO interrupted. This level of specificity is remarkable. How long did this analysis take? About 200 hours, I said. Because your company deserves solutions built on real understanding, not templates. When we finished, the room was quiet. Gordon looked at his team, then back at me. We'll be in touch, he said. His expression was unreadable. 3 weeks passed. Every day felt like a year. I threw myself into our existing client work, trying not to obsess over Redline's decision. Ethan, meanwhile, seemed completely confident. Industry contacts reported he was already planning how to spend the increased revenue. He's talking about expanding the office, hiring 10 new consultants, Tess told me. He thinks it's done. I said nothing. There was nothing to say except wait. Then, on a Tuesday morning at 9:37 a.m., my phone rang. Redline Manufacturing. My heart stopped. Mr. Keller, this is Sarah Chun from Redline's procurement team, the voice said. I'm calling to inform you that after careful consideration, Redline Manufacturing has selected Keller and Company Consulting as our strategic partner for the next 3 years. The world seemed to slow down. The contract value is $12 million, with performance incentives that could increase the total to $14 million. We'll send the formal agreement today. Congratulations. I thanked her, my voice somehow remaining steady despite my hand shaking. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Tess looked at me. Well, we got it, I whispered. We actually got it. She screamed. Actually screamed. Then we both started laughing, crying, hugging, releasing months of stress and doubt and desperate hope. $12 million. We'd done it. The news spread through the consulting industry within hours. By noon, my phone was flooded with congratulatory messages. By evening, industry newsletters were running headlines. Small firm Keller and Company wins major contract from Stratwell and Pierce. Stratwell and Pierce's stock price dropped 8% in a single day. I didn't gloat. I didn't make public statements. I simply released a professional announcement thanking Redline for their trust and promising to deliver exceptional results. But inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, validation. The following week, reports emerged about Stratwell and Pierce. 3 senior consultants resigned. 2 major clients requested proposal bids from competitors. Their reputation, built on Ethan's ego rather than substance, was cracking. Ethan tried damage control, releasing a statement about strategic refocusing and exciting new directions. But everyone saw through it. His biggest client was gone, and everyone knew why. Tess showed me an anonymous industry forum post. Stratwell lost Redline because they prioritized ego over excellence. Keller and Company won because they did the opposite. I closed my laptop. This wasn't about Ethan anymore. It was about building something that mattered. 2 weeks after winning the Redline contract, I got an unexpected call. "Ryan, it's Ethan. We should talk." His voice was different, smaller, less confident. The arrogance had been replaced by something that sounded almost like desperation. "About what?" I asked carefully. "Just, let's grab lunch. No agenda. Just talk." I almost declined. But curiosity got the better of me. We met at the same upscale restaurant where Ethan had once treated clients, back when he could afford to. When I arrived, he was already there, looking older than I remembered. His suit was wrinkled. His confidence had evaporated. "Ryan," he said, standing awkwardly. "Thanks for coming." We sat. Ordered. The silence between us was heavy. "I heard about Redline," he finally said. "Congratulations." "Thank you." More silence. "Things have been challenging at Stratwell and Pierce," he continued. "We've had some setbacks. And I've been thinking, maybe we could work together. Combine our strengths. Your strategic mind, my industry connections." I stared at him, genuinely shocked. This was the man who humiliated me publicly, who stole my work, who poisoned my reputation. And now he wanted a partnership? "Ethan," I said slowly, "do you remember what you told me when you fired me?" He looked uncomfortable. "Ryan, that was just. You said I'd never lead anything bigger than a PowerPoint deck," I continued. "You said I lacked ambition." "I was wrong," he said quickly. "I see that now. You've proven." "No," I interrupted. "I haven't proven anything. I was always ambitious. You just couldn't see it because my ambition didn't look like yours." I stood up, pulling out my wallet to pay for my untouched meal. "I don't need your connections, Ethan. I built something real with integrity and hard work. That's something you never understood." I left him sitting there, alone. Outside, Tess was waiting by my car. "How did it go?" she asked. "Exactly how it needed to," I said. She handed me a file folder. "You're going to want to see this." The file contained financial documents from Stratwell and Pierce, documents that had been anonymously delivered to our office. Inside was evidence of mismanaged client funds. Nothing explicitly illegal, but ethically questionable. Retainer fees used for personal expenses. Project budgets inflated beyond actual costs. Billing discrepancies that bordered on fraud. "Where did this come from?" I asked. "Anonymous source. Probably someone still inside who's tired of Ethan's behavior," Tess said. I stared at the documents. I could destroy him completely with this information. Send it to industry regulators, leak it to business journals. Ensure Ethan never worked in consulting again. Part of me wanted to. After everything he'd done, he deserved it. But another part, the part that had built Keller and Company on integrity, hesitated. "What do you want to do?" Tess asked. I thought for a long moment. Then I made copies, sealed them in an envelope, and addressed it to Stratwell and Pierce's board of directors, anonymously. "Let them handle it internally," I said. "I'm not destroying him. I'm just making sure the truth comes out." "You're better than he deserves," Tess said. "No," I replied. "I'm just better than he thought I was." 2 weeks later, Stratwell and Pierce announced an internal investigation. Ethan was placed on administrative leave. The company's reputation continued to crumble. 6 months after winning the Redline contract, I was invited to speak at the Regional Business Leadership Conference. The topic, building success with integrity. Standing backstage, I felt nervous. Public speaking had never been my strength. But the organizers insisted. My story had inspired people across the industry. When I walked onto that stage and looked at the audience of 300 business leaders, I realized something important. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't even about proving Ethan wrong. It was about showing people there was a better way. "Good morning," I began. I want to tell you about the day I got fired. I shared the whole story, the humiliation, the struggles, the decision to build something new. I didn't mention Ethan by name, but I didn't need to. Everyone in the industry knew. Getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me, I said. Not because revenge felt good, it didn't. But because it forced me to bet on myself, to build something aligned with my values rather than someone else's ego. I talked about integrity over image, substance over flash, long-term relationships over short-term wins. Ambition isn't loud, I concluded. It's not about taking credit or pushing others down. Real ambition is quiet, steady, and focused on creating value. It doesn't forget where it came from, but it doesn't live in the past either. It builds towards something better. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, dozens of people approached me. Young professionals thanked me for the encouragement. Seasoned executives shared their own stories of workplace betrayal and redemption. A journalist asked if I had any message for Ethan Stratwell. I hope he learns from this, I said simply. Everyone deserves a second chance to be better. 1 year after my firing, Keller & Company had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We'd expanded to 15 employees. Our client roster included 8 major companies. Our revenue had increased by 400%. We'd moved from my apartment to a real office with glass walls and a view of the city. Gordon Mays had become not just a client, but a mentor. Redline's partnership had opened doors across the industry. You've built something special here, Gordon told me during one of our monthly check-ins. Companies are paying attention. You're changing how people think about consulting. But the real measure of success wasn't the numbers. It was the culture we'd created. Everyone at Keller & Company knew their contributions mattered. We shared credit. We supported each other. We built solutions focused on client success, not personal glory. That same week, I received news that Stratwell & Pierce had filed for bankruptcy. The investigation had revealed years of financial mismanagement. Clients had fled. Employees had resigned. The company that once seemed invincible had collapsed under the weight of its own corruption. Ethan had tried to rebuild his reputation, but the damage was irreversible. Last I heard, he'd left consulting entirely. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall, just sadness that it had come to this. On the first anniversary of Keller & Company's founding, we threw a small celebration at our office. Current employees, former colleagues who'd supported us, and key clients all gathered to mark the milestone. Gordon raised a glass to Ryan and Tess for proving that integrity and success aren't mutually exclusive. Everyone cheered. Later that evening, after most guests had left, I stood alone in my office looking out at the city lights. Tess joined me. We actually did it, she said. Remember when this was just us in your apartment with a dream and a whiteboard? I remember thinking we were crazy, I admitted. We were, she laughed. But we were also right. My phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address. I opened it hesitantly. Ryan, I know I have no right to contact you. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything. You deserve better. You always did. I hope you found what you were looking for. Ethan. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I hit delete. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. But that was okay. I didn't need his apology to feel complete. 2 months later, I received an invitation to join the board of advisors for the National Consulting Association. At 34 years old, I was one of the youngest people ever invited to serve. The invitation letter specifically mentioned my innovative approach to ethical business practices and my commitment to redefining industry standards. I accepted. At my first board meeting, I met leaders from firms 10 times the size of Keller & Company. They treated me as an equal because I'd earned it. During a break, one of them pulled me aside. I heard what happened with Stratwell, he said. I want you to know, a lot of us saw what Ethan was doing for years. We just didn't have the courage to call it out. You did. You changed things by refusing to play his game. That conversation meant more than any contract or award. I hadn't just built a successful company. I'd help shift how people thought about success itself. The real test of our growth came when a major corporation approached us about acquisition. They offered $20 million for Keller and Company, a sum that would have made Tess and me financially secure for life. We scheduled a meeting to discuss the offer. "This is life-changing money," Tess said, looking at the proposal. "We'd be set forever." "We would," I agreed. "But," she prompted, "but would they maintain what we've built? The culture, the values, the way we treat people." We spent hours debating. The money was tempting. The security was appealing. But something felt wrong about selling the company we'd built on integrity to a corporation that might compromise those principles. In the end, we declined. "We didn't build this to sell it," I told the acquisition team. "We built it to last." They were shocked. Most entrepreneurs would have jumped at that offer. But we weren't most entrepreneurs. We were people who'd learned that some things matter more than money. 3 years after my firing, I returned to the conference where Ethan had once presented my work as his own. This time, I was the keynote speaker. The irony wasn't lost on me as I stood on that same stage, looking out at hundreds of industry leaders who'd come to hear my presentation. Redefining ambition. Building success without compromising integrity. I told my story, not naming Ethan, but sharing the lessons I'd learned. About being underestimated. About finding strength in rejection. About building something meaningful rather than just profitable. "I used to think ambition meant climbing a ladder," I said. "Reaching the next rung, getting the next promotion, earning the next title. But real ambition is about building something that matters. Something that helps people. Something that lasts beyond your ego." I shared statistics. How Keller and Company's client retention rate was 94%. How our employee satisfaction scores were the highest in the industry. How our ethical practices had been adopted by 17 other firms. Success isn't about who can shout the loudest or take credit the fastest, I concluded. It's about who can create the most value while treating people with dignity. That's the ambition worth having. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, a young consultant approached me. She was maybe 25, nervous, but determined. "Your story changed my life," she said. "I was working for someone like your former boss. After hearing you speak last year, I quit and started my own practice. I just landed my first major client." Stories like hers reminded me why the struggle had been worth it. 5 years to the day after Ethan fired me, I stood in my corner office at Keller and Company's new headquarters. The company now employed 43 people. Our annual revenue exceeded $30 million. We'd expanded into 3 new markets and were consistently ranked among the top ethical businesses in the region. But the numbers weren't what mattered most. What mattered was the culture we'd built, the lives we changed, the industry standards we'd helped shift. My phone buzzed with a meeting reminder. A potential client was coming in, a startup looking for strategic guidance. They'd specifically requested me because, as their email said, "We want to build something that matters, not just something that makes money." Before heading to the conference room, I paused at the whiteboard in my office. The same whiteboard from my apartment days, now hanging on the wall as a reminder. Written across it in faded marker were those 3 words, "Make it matter." We'd done that. Not through revenge or destruction, but through building something better. Tess knocked on my door. "Ready for the meeting?" "Ready," I said. As we walked down the hall past employees collaborating, laughing, genuinely enjoying their work, I felt something I hadn't felt that day in Ethan's conference room. Peace. Not because I'd beaten him. Not because I'd proven him wrong. But because I'd proven myself right. Ambition isn't about being loud or taking credit or climbing over others. It's about having the courage to bet on yourself. The discipline to do the hard work. The integrity to build something meaningful. 5 years ago, Ethan told me I'd never lead anything bigger than a PowerPoint deck. Now I led a company that was changing how an entire industry thought about success. Not through arrogance or ego, but through quiet, steady, purposeful work. As I entered the conference room to meet our new client, I smiled. Ambition, I'd learned, wasn't something you announced. It was something you lived. And I was just getting started.